Oh, we're live. Okay. This is a conference committee on the FY 2022 budget. I apologize, we're a little bit late, but the chair of House Appropriations was having a little technical difficulty getting in, and we did not want to proceed until we had our full complement of conferees. So I'm going to go back and we'll pick up where we left off relative to possible areas of closure. We had some discussion around childcare, and we know that we have to amend what was the House amendment because of a guidance. I don't know if we have additional language, Senator Westman, that you want to have, but that might be a possibility. And somebody unknown is calling me. Just thought I would
think
tell
your
you.
warranty is out, Senator.
So,
It's about to expire. This is your final
Yeah.
chance.
yeah,
If-
on my,
If the House would do that robocall bill, it'd probably stop all of that.
yeah, right. So, and then I don't know whether, I know the House has been on the virtual floor and some other discussions. So shall we get started? Senator Westman, do you have, I know that you and perhaps Representative Jessup have had some conversations. She had offered some language for us to look at. And did you want to offer another
And I
section?
think at this point, Stephanie would have a copy of the basic tenets of what Representative Jessup and I have talked about. It's a little different, but Stephanie has something that she could.
Okay. And this would be to add to the proposed language that Representative Jessup reviewed this morning?
Yes.
Okay.
And so it would add a new subsection to that section where it would say that DCF shall consider statewide childcare system capacity needs and the use of the child care development block grant funds to expand statewide capacity. The department shall report in January 2022 to the General Assembly on capacity grants issued to expand existing programs or establish new programs. And then in addition to putting that language into the budget bill itself, Senator Westman would like some intent language directed at the September 1 plan that they actually look at a snapshot of capacity, the most current snapshot of capacity that they have when they're doing their prioritization of the federal dollars, so they understand the current capacity, number of slots, et cetera, what's the change been. But that would be done as part of the letter of intent.
Yeah, and when the September 1st date comes for joint fiscal to vote on the ARPA funds that they would, I thought it would be appropriate that they have quarterly numbers come out to how many placements we have in that we that come along to the joint fiscal committee.
So you would, so in addition to that, the planning group, you want joint fiscal to have access to that snapshot of what the capacity looks like. Okay, we'll add that as part of the intent.
So they don't, so joint fiscal doesn't vote on the ARPA money in isolation of what the whole picture is.
What the lay of the land is regarding capacity.
Okay,
out there.
so I see a hand up from Representative Jessup.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Senator Westman for giving us a fuller picture, and I'm happy to agree to that addition. Thank you.
Okay, and even with that little modification that was just talked about.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and we've had a couple discussions. There are two different streams of funding, and if we were to only focus on one, it gives us a less complete picture. So now we'll have an idea of what's going on with the block grant. At the same time, we have a report back in terms of what happened with the plan around stabilization grants, and I think that'll prepare us well going forward in January.
Okay, so that section was,
And I just also mentioned to the other conferees, and Representative Jessup and I talked to Sarah Truckle this morning, and it will come up in another vein, but I think appropriate. they, to administer these grants and to move forward in childcare division, are going to need some limited service positions. And Stephanie has been emailing the administration to find out, but I think that around this whole issue, we've heard the number of 6 positions, 4 in the childcare development division, and 2, I think, in the administration at DCF to work with this. But I think that may be a piece of other positions that might be considered.
Yeah, we've got position requests from a variety of places. And I think actually, did we get a request? I know that we have a request for positions from ACCD. We also have them from ANR. We now have them from DCF. And so we're going to have to look at all the required positions in total that the administration's requesting to carry out this workload. So we'll
Commissioner
have to
Gresham.
add those to the list.
Yeah, Commissioner Gresham said he would be getting that pulled together for us by tomorrow or so.
Okay.
And we may need to technically correct the way we did the positions for the emergency housing. When we get to that, we probably want to pull them in, and we I don't think we quite established them correctly. We probably want to pull them in with the rest of them that we do. So
Okay. All right. So do it all in one place and do it all the right way.
it'll be all in that
So,
E100 section of the bill, probably. Where we do
So
positions.
the childcare section,
Is E318.3.
E.
$18.3, yeah.
E318.3. Okay, so we can agree on the revised language. Close that out.
Okay, yes.
All right, good. Good, thank you. So that was one thing that we brought up this morning. And then I think we were going to check on some other items. So Representative Hooper, do you have other
Yes.
sections that you want us to go either look at
Yes.
for the first time or go back to?
How about look at for the first time?
Okay.
And they relate to what I think of as the justice arena. And so they are in the Bs as well as in your G section, but let us start in the Bs at B203 and B202. Did I say that right? 202 and 203. You
Yeah,
proposed reducing the contract increase to the public defense system by 75,000 and to the Defender General's assigned counsel by 75,000 for a total of 150,000. We do not agree with that. I know that elsewhere we have provided, as we have for the other partners in the justice system, pretty substantial amounts of money to deal with coming out of the pandemic. But we are concerned about base funding for the Defender General as well as for the other partners in the justice system. I know there may be a thought when you broadly look at the Defender General's budget versus the state's attorney's budget, and you see that there is a difference in the amount that we provide those two entities. And I was thinking about that and why that is, why we actually provide more funding for the Defender General. And I think the simple way to describe it is they, in fact, do more things. They run a prisoners' rights division. They have an appellate division. The burden on their juvenile defense is pretty significant. And because of that, we really feel rather strongly that we need to restore that $150,000 to their base budget so that they're able to continue providing what we consider base needs.
Yeah, but
Okay, I'll let Senator Sears, because he spent a lot of time on that.
Mhm.
And when we were looking at base increases, between the two, it was almost $1 million base increase that was being proposed by you. So I'm going to let Senator Sears
Yeah,
talk about that.
and I think as I look at, obviously everyone has needs. And when I looked at the entire judiciary system, criminal and civil defense system, as well as state's attorneys and all the other players, the governor, you went over $1 million over the governor's level. We wanted to do things for state's attorneys, the attorney general, and other groups. So we looked at your increase for the defender general and the public defense based upon what was in the governor's budget, not necessarily what was in your budget. And we still provided, I think, about $800,000 increase over the governor's for the defender general.
I don't have their budget open in front of me.
Well,
In
I don't
fact,
either.
yeah,
I'm going by memory, but I
yeah.
believe that you went just under $1 million increase in the Defender General's base
Mhm.
budget. And in the other areas of the judiciary, we had places to fill. And I looked back and I made the recommendation to reduce the contract increase and the ad hoc increase
Mhm.
by 75,000 each for 150, but it still left you over 800,000 over the governor's recommend.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And
So
I
I mean,
see-
it's not like the defender general isn't getting a huge amount over what the governor recommended, but the need we had to fill. We felt we had to fill the gap within the judiciary, a gap within the state's attorneys, and the Center for Crime Victim Services, the network programs. So that,
Yeah.
that was part of what we did in the judiciary, and I know that there's obviously different ways to look at what you need to do.
Mhm.
They could all use more money.
I appreciate that, and we were not going to quibble with some of the other increases that you provided. We see that, in fact, you have increased the Center for Crime Victim Services to give $150,000 grant to the Network Against Sexual Violence.
Yeah.
We agree with that. We have no
Good.
quibble with that. We recognize.
By the way, that hasn't been increased since 2008.
Yeah.
And that's a base. You said grants, but
Well,
yeah.
so it's
I know it
to
goes
the
out that way.
center. It's
Yeah.
to the center, but
Mhm.
to be granted to the Network Against Sexual
Right.
Violence. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Right.
at the end of the day, the issue for us isn't what was, but what is needed to sufficiently run these offices. And we were very pleased that we were able to find those additional base dollars, and that you were able to find additional base dollars to this system. We feel, again, looking at the workload and the burden within the Defender General's office, that thinking of this as a package, that we can accept B220, B205, B204, and B20. Yeah, I said 204, as long as we also restore the 150,000 that was deducted from the Defender General's office. And as you know, we have some general fund dollars on the bottom line that we could, so I'm not suggesting that we take this from anywhere else. I am suggesting that we add back in the 150,000 from the bottom line where we have sufficient monies to cover that. And hold on to your hat, because I want to suggest also doing some additional one-time spending. So we rather very late in the game, after you had voted on your budget, received information from the Center for Crime Victim Services as well as the network about the shortfall in the Domestic Violence and Sexual Violence Special Fund.
Yeah, we all got
yeah.
that, I think.
Yeah. And it's disappointing to just get that information in the last week when, both sides have been looking at these special funds for a couple of months now and trying to understand what we should do. But I would suggest that we find some one-time money to backfill the FY21 shortfall in the Domestic Violence and Sexual Violence Special Fund, and then make sure that that's part of the analysis that is done by the working group. However, we organize that working group to look at the funding needs of the entire system. There is without a doubt a need to stabilize and improve the way we fund. And so we appreciated you initiating that proposal.
Do you remember, we all got the memo saying they hope that you would agree to the 150, and then do you remember off the top of your head, or I can pull the memo up again, what is that was necessary to deal with this shortfall, which you're asking?
I forgive me, I didn't pull that out, and I should have been prepared to say what that number was. It's been one of those days.
$345,000 for FY21, $345K for FY21.
There we go. I knew that before, 345.
So it's 345 for
Correct.
just
Mhm.
For FY21.
And I'm assuming that ARPA dollars would be eligible for that. Or isn't that our understanding that revenue shortfalls can be used that way?
Well, we know that they can be used to fill, revenue,
Yeah.
tax revenue. I don't
Mhm.
know if this.
if it can be used here. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you're asking for 345 one time, based on the, what, we all got the request. So the question.
Yeah.
And I asked
Well-
Senator Sears, why did, because the judiciary spent a lot of time, I think several days taking testimony.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a surprise that this, was not, didn't seem to have been presented until we all got that memo saying, please keep the
Mhm.
150, but here's another problem. So are we talking about 345 in total?
At
No.
one time.
At one time, I'm talking about.
Yes, so it's one-time money that would go to the Domestic Violence and Sexual Violence Special Fund to cover its shortfall for FY21. We also understand that they are anticipating a shortfall in 22. And I'm hoping that we will organize a group to analyze what's going on with fees, fines, surcharges, et cetera. And that will help us understand what we should do for FY22. And if there's a need to talk about this more, we can address the 22 problem in budget adjustment if necessary.
Well, I think you raised the reason that number one, the communication was a bit late, and they're extremely fortunate that they discovered this before we had settled the budget. But I I've had, I think this is exactly the reason that we need to do some form of study. We've already discussed that. And I obviously like what the Senate put forth, but we need to continue to discuss this, because otherwise, not just the network programs, but other programs are going to suffer, and many of them are, just important. And we don't. So yes, I'm supportive of fixing that. And then I need to talk to the other conferees about the Defender General package, but I appreciate that you've agreed with us on the need for the increase in the judiciary, state's attorneys, and the Center for Crime Victim Services.
With the understanding that I'm thinking of this as,
I
as
no, I
the
understand it's a
justice
package
system.
for
Yeah.
another 150,000 to the Defender General to give him about $1 million over what was in the governor's proposal.
Yeah. I just, as we look at the number of cases that we have in the state, at opening up the court system, every partner within the system needs to be prepared to respond to what's coming. And a delay on the part of any partner in that system in responding just creates this cascading negative effect on the whole system. So we've got to make sure everybody is ready to go.
I don't want to lose sight of the victims advocates in all this.
Yep.
In terms of the Center for Crime Victim Services, because that's one of the major problems is the victims advocates are funded through grants, federal grants, and then because they're sort of state employees, any increase they get has to come out of the state's attorney's budgets.
Yeah.
So that's an added. We need to solve that problem as well for the long term.
Yeah, we absolutely do, Senator Sears. The victims advocates, and honestly, the kind of status of the Center for Crime Victim Services, they're neither fish nor fowl. They're not really the state, and they're not really private sector. And I think we need to look at that whole system. And as you know so well and have worked so hard on, we as a society have not been attentive enough to the whole issue of domestic and sexual violence. And so I'm really hoping that we can figure out a way to properly support those programs. And so I'm looking forward to the work that you're going to be engaged in.
So obviously we're going to have more discussion. I'm wondering in terms of the request, because obviously when we were looking at judiciary, it was not giving them more, it was replacing lost revenue to hold them, or uncontrollable costs in the part of the Labor Relations Board decision. Did you actually, in looking at the workload and so forth, in deciding at this point, setting aside the others, you had selected out Defender General among all the others here. Do you have, did they provide some kind of white paper or something to the committee, or maybe Senator Sears, you got it in the deliberation about what it was that was unique about when you were building this part of the budget that set them apart from the other parts?
I gotta go get my file. That's
I was asking. Well, I was asking.
You were asking
Cooper,
okay.
On the House side,
Yeah.
because obviously you must have felt that a very compelling argument was being made by the Defender General to have made a base increase of that size, and so I'm just wondering if we could have the benefit of any of the data behind it relative to the budgetary pressures that made that part of the judiciary system stand out to you?
We certainly took testimony from the Defender General on this, and I do not have at my fingertips the data that we had that we felt was that not felt but did support our decision. Again, this is looking at their caseloads and the work that they do, the cost of the contracts that they have, how they're managing their workload. Quite frankly, I find this one of the more impressive operations in state government in terms of value for the dollar and the dedication to managing those dollars. Over the past year or two, we have been hearing a deep concern from the Defender General with regard to his the way he's managing the assigned counsel side, in his fear that he cannot adequately fund those programs, so that he is going to lose the private contractors and have to then hire state employees to fill those spots at a significantly higher cost than we would see on the way he manages it through private contracts. I think those of you who remember this from the old days and what the costs were before there was the strict regime of management and understanding value can see how, as I said, really extraordinary dollar value that we're getting out of the work that they're doing.
Yeah, no, we all remember that past history. I guess that's what I'm thinking about. We're, trying to balance out all, sort of looking at it as a whole system. And so, I mean, obviously, any of the juvenile cases, none of those cases go to the Defender General, I wouldn't think, until the state's attorney actually files, say, a Chins petition or whatever. So I was wondering what, and you mentioned where the pressure was. So I was just trying to think about what parts of that workload was clearly that stood out in this request. Just to help us sort of understand why it seemed like there was the one part of it was getting a very significant increase, and not the rest. And that's why I was asking whether there was some kind of data or rationale that was provided to have that funding decision look the way it did. That was all.
And that is the testimony that we received. He talked about the problem with filling his contracts. He's talked about it particularly up in the Northeast Kingdom, that he's deeply concerned about being able to retain the counsel that he has up there. It is in the more rural parts of the state. He talks about being able to fill positions in Chittenden and Washington County, but being extremely challenged throughout the rest of the state. And, the way to solve that challenge, unfortunately, is to increase one's ability to buy those services. But you mentioned the juvenile piece, and I think something that we frequently forget when we look at that system is, a lot of the work, I believe all of the work with the termination of parental rights is done principally by the Attorney General's office. But when they are in courts, the state's attorney will have one attorney there representing the state, but it is not uncommon. I remember going to one hearing where one child was the source of the hearing, but there was an attorney for the mother there was an attorney that was provided by the Defender General. There was an attorney for the child that was provided by the Defender General. There was an attorney for the father who was provided by the Defender General. I think I'm missing a couple of others. I think there were a couple of other kids involved, and each one of them have a separate attorney as opposed to the state's attorney, as in that they represent the state. They have one client, whereas on the juvenile side, it's not at all uncommon to have for the Defender General to be required to have separate attorneys, so the interest of the individuals are all separately represented. And that's part of the problem with, say, it's not a one-for-one sort of analysis that one can do. It's not you get one attorney and I get one attorney. But let's also don't lose sight of the fact that, for example, the Defender General is also responsible for the Prisoner Rights Office, which has it has 7.5 people who are working in that office on prisoners' rights. That is
So would
something.
any of the proposed increases go for, to support that office? It doesn't.
No,
No.
I'm sorry. I'm now
Oh.
speaking about the general costs of the
Oh.
system. And when you
Oh.
look
Oh.
at all of I thought there was a notion that we're spending this much on the state's attorneys and that much on, a different amount, and it's not comparable. But no, so to bring it back to your point, I am just talking about the contract increases and or bringing back to what we had proposed. So adding 75,000 back into the contract increase for the public defense side, and adding back 75,000 that you reduced on the ad hoc side under the assigned counsel.
Okay, well, we'll.
You'll have to think about it.
Obviously, you feel strongly about this. Did our Judiciary Committee spent quite a bit of time? Was this an area of the budget that your Judiciary Committee took testimony as well? I'm just wondering if this, I guess it was only in one area. It was on the Senate side that we added the other pieces of the system.
So our Judiciary Committee, we developed our proposal to you in consultation with our Judiciary Committee.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And so just to finish this whole discussion, there's just one other piece or another section that I would like to touch upon, and that is your G201, the section where you added $9 million to the judiciary for their opening, and you added a list of items that they were supposed to do. Sorry, I closed my book. I was using my budget book to try to hold the my iPhone, which is what I'm talking to you on, and I'm going to disappear while I open this up so I can be more accurate. G201. So you in this section say add $9 million to the judiciary for their pandemic recovery response and reopening, and you say let's have a 6-person jury reduction. Use this money to spend on 6-person juries for civil cases, reduction in backlog and child support, particularly in Bennington, Chittenden, and Rutland. And then C, address evictions and backlog. We would add a D, which is to also deal with expungements. In conversation with Senator Sears, I believe that was the thought that $9 million you had provided there would also attend to expungements. And as you know, we are worried about assuring that that's dealt with in S7. And if that's the way you had proposed to, if there are any costs in F7, they are covered in that 9 million. So in section G201A, we accept A, B, and C, and we would recommend adding a D that adds to the list expungements.
Okay, that's on page 213 of my document here.
It's on page 202 of mine.
Okay. Well,
Who knows?
all right. So Senator Sears, we had to rely on you. I had asked you, you're muted. But your
Yeah.
your response was that you it was you believe that that expungement
That was already, yeah, is already
was
part of it. And we can't force them to do 6-member juries. But it was hopeful that
You're
they would
authorizing.
authorizing it.
Mhm.
And secondly, we learned late in the game about the backlog in child support cases, which, as you know, also impacts, of course, families who are in desperate need of that child support. So, and we learned that there was a huge backlog in those 3 counties. So we specified those, but it's a 9 million over 2 years. All the funding is over a 2-year period, not 1
Not
year.
one. Yes.
And so the various, but that's how, we've rounded it off, to be honest with you. But you could think about it, 4.5 million a year. But
Mhm.
expungements, they actually, Pat Gable mentioned expungements in her testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee.
So
Well-
should we, so I guess what we're being asked is in that language to add
Yeah.
D and have expungement specifically referenced.
Yeah.
Which
That-
I think is reflective of what you
It's-
thought.
Yeah, I don't see there's any problem there.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we'll add that in the language, and then we're going to have more discussion around the, and what you're saying is everything stays constant, but we've come up with another 150, or we keep the
Mhm.
base increase for the Defender General as you recommended. Okay, well, we'll have some further discussion on that. That would, if we come to agreement, that's quite a bit out, that's in that justice section there. Okay,
Correct. Okay.
all right.
All right.
Let's see. We can't do any of the AOT because that's being conferenced, as
Yeah.
I understand it. Any other items here you wanted to throw out? I was working on some language that would go with the money to go to human resources with the with 125,000 for the classification system. And
Okay.
I'll send that to you, but it would be something to the effect that the Department of Human Resources shall request input from state employees who are a member of the classified system
Mhm.
or their union representatives as the replacement of the current position classification system is designed and implemented. And on January 15th of each year annually until the project's completed, they would do a summary update to the committees of to GovOps and APROPS. So we don't normally ask an administration to seek input from legislators. So I thought I'd break it
Okay.
up. And one is they would give us a status report and they would seek input because I don't think we are asking them to, you used the term stakeholders. And since we're talking about how positions are classified, I thought I would try to make it a little more precise. So I'll send you that language as an alternative for that 125.
Thank you, Senator Kitchell. I appreciate you working on that. Thank you very
Uh-huh.
much. Yeah. Let me talk about some of the sections that are related to energy management and some climate pieces. And I'm only hesitating because I don't have a complete package, but I think we need to talk about it so that your folks can think about this and respond to it. So, and we're working as you know, very closely with our policy committee and ask them to review your, what you have proposed there. And just beginning at the top of your proposal. So in E112, the State Energy Management Program, you added a recommendation that the Department of Buildings and General Services could, I believe the notion was that they could offer technical assistance to municipalities, but they were entitled to charge them a fee for that service. And I'm assuming that that is associated with the plan that we had offered or the proposal that we had in our budget in 112.1, where we provided for the Municipal Energy Revolving Loan Fund. We recommended $10 million to go to the municipalities. As you know, as we all know, we are deeply committed to issues associated with the climate and reducing the thermal and energy burdens of all of our buildings as well as transportation. And we were interested in encouraging the municipalities to focus on this. It is my understanding that a municipal revolving fund could not be an eligible use for ARPA. So while we would like to reinstate what you have struck, we recognize it can't be used that way. And here's my dilemma. We have some ideas for where we would like this to go, either to the Clean Energy Development Fund so that they could work with, so that they could deploy those resources, or to perhaps putting $3.3 million out to the regional planning commissions and tasking them specifically with working with municipalities to implement their town energy plans. I don't have a complete proposal for you. I'm just acknowledging that we can't do what we had proposed, and I would like to come up with a different idea on how we should use that. We'll get that to you very soon. But then I'm moving to
Let me give you just a little background.
Okay,
We
thank you.
felt with 176 million going out to municipalities, or at least we hope it's how it'll still go out, although that's
maybe
the question
different.
around where the asterisks need to be added or not. That municipalities would not have to finance, they would have the ability to, and I'm getting emails where they want to do solar installations. They've got a number of ideas. And so our thought was that rather than getting and setting up a revolving loan and all that, the municipalities would actually have the ability to use those federal dollars to underwrite the cost of these investments. And so we were thinking, well, if Buildings was going to be able to charge them as part of that revolving loan construct, because they had a body of expertise that the municipalities could benefit from, then they could give that consultation and have the ability to have the cost covered. So it was just a way of saying, gee, if we've got a state department that has expertise that could be used in this way, we wanted to not we wanted to recognize that that was a resource that we wanted to make available to municipalities, but we wanted to keep in that language what went there with the revolving loan fund, that they could get reimbursement. So if you feel that you want to replace that, I'm sure we can entertain it, but that was our thinking behind it. And that was, well, even though they've got money in their pocket now, they still could probably benefit from that consultation. So that's just the level of thinking behind it.
I could tell that there was some real thought to that. A complication with that notion is there is a question about whether or not the state government could charge for a service like that. And let me also, the state energy management program that is run by BGS actually has Efficiency Vermont pays for 3 of the staff members in the
I know.
energy management program.
Uh-huh.
So it's almost like we would be charging a fee for the use of a private sector. It's not, because it's Efficiency Vermont is paying for the state employees.
Yeah, I guess we were
But
just
you see
looking
the
at it.
complication. Yeah.
Well, we were just thinking if they were providing the service and you were wanted it, or allowing it to happen if under a loan construct, but they didn't need the loan anymore, why not just, allow that? But if it gets too complicated, and my first thought was, gee, that gets into fee setting, and isn't that gonna, did you pass that by Ways and Means? And so we are flexible on that.
Yeah.
And if you think it's more problematic than not, then we'll maybe just take the whole thing right out.
Yeah. And so again, we're just interested in maintaining a commitment to the dollar figure that we had toward climate related issues. And so acknowledging that the Municipal Energy Revolving Fund is not an appropriate vehicle, we'd like to offer you a different suggestion. So we will get that to you right away.
For municipalities?
No, for energy, for energy efficiency related work. Maybe our recommendation will be simply to put an additional $10 million into Clean Energy Development Fund, which could then be granted out to, how they work, and people can make application to that. And the appropriate groups could apply. But again, I also mentioned the interest in supporting the regional planning commissions in their work in helping municipalities beef up their energy related work.
Well, is that part of your thinking with the 850 that you put into RPCs?
No, with that, we were interested in generally increasing their ability to be working with the with municipalities. And again, I'm just coming back to, there's a broad need to be, we all know that
in the money to, we had put 300,000 in, I believe it was in 315 as well for that purpose.
Yeah. Well, as we know, we are all deeply aware of the significant amount of money coming into either the state or the county, the municipal or the county level, and wanting to make sure that they have access to resources that will help them expend those dollars appropriately. And quite frankly, we're trying to think of ways to incent the expenditure of those dollars on energy related improvements. So that's our struggle, is to keep this focus on the climate issue and reducing the energy burden that, my battery's going to run down.
All right, well, we have 4 minutes before our next meeting, so I hope you can get recharged.
Whoops, okay. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, well, I'm gonna. Okay, so let me just, because there's some other pieces here that you're gonna have to think about. I'm plugging you in, and can you hear me still? I hope.
We can hear you. You wanted to,
I
you
can
want to do
barely
the
hear
LIHEAP,
you, but,
do you want to do the
Okay.
LIHEAP pieces now?
yeah, we should, shoot. We should talk about LIHEAP, but let me also just, your other language sections in the budget, E234, you had some significant policy language associated with S109. And as you know, our policy committee has not had a chance to look at that. We may be deeply interested in it, but it's really significant policy work that we haven't been able to dig into. And so with the exception of E234.3, we do not accept your proposals. So we don't, again, and please understand that this is not, that we may not agree with the what your Natural Resources Committee was trying to accomplish here. We just have not had a chance to dig into it. So you're in 234, you're proposing changing some goals. In 234.1, you make a reference back to those goals with in 234, you're 2.2, you're looking for some recommendations from the PUC.
Mhm.
Again, all may be great ideas. We haven't had an ability to dig into them. We have had an ability to dig into the notion of coordinating and the workforce that does energy and counseling related work, and do support that. So we do support 234.3.
Okay,
And then do not support 234.5. We do, well, and so that's, I think that is kind of that piece that was associated with S109. And I know you may need some time to think about that. I'm just trying to,
you mean on the
quickly.
I'm sorry, you said 235, which is 911?
no, I stopped myself. I started to say 235. We agree with 235, if you want to just take that off.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right,
so
okay.
that one, we agree with you.
And
so
you
no
agreed with
dispute
the,
there.
with the workforce?
Yes, the 234.3.
Okay,
And again, respect and appreciate the work that is done there. Just do not have, since our policy committee has not had the ability to look at that bill as in whole, just need to take a pause on it. So we cannot agree to that.
okay.
And then we wanted to talk about LIHEAP. And
But you know, we're at 4 o'clock.
are we at time? Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll have to come back. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
my
we've had-
battery's at time.
Yeah, I think we're running out of time, and we kind of had a brief earlier reference to another source coming in about how we can, so that I think that's the proposal about that LIHEAP bump. So we'll hold that until tomorrow at 9.
Okay,
Um,
excellent.
And hopefully by then, some of your policy committees, you wanted them to get done by
Yeah.
Tuesday, and tomorrow is Friday.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um,
Well, I gave you judiciary and energy and technologies proposals. So that's what we ran through today.
oh, well, no, I
So
thought all
the
the
justice-
234 was energy and technology that's still outstanding.
Yeah. Well, no, we do not accept any part of 234 except for 234.3. We're not asking for more time. We are
Oh.
saying we accept 234.3, and the remainder of that, I think is a next year discussion.
Okay, all right. Then I'm not agreeing to it. I'm just.
I
I'm
appreciate
clarifying.
that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Uh,
you.
Could I just ask that, when we come back tomorrow, could, we talk, could we check out, it all relates to the spending in the G sections in the G600s. And and there is G600, and then they also natural resources, is the, in the G700s. And I think we agree on all of that, but could you look at that?
Yeah, we just haven't had a chance to get there. And I think we're also being, this issue with what are ARPA funds eligible for. I haven't put my brain around that with regard to
that's the other
this.
thing. Adam, are you on?
He said he was going to be late and I have not seen him.
Okay, because one of the things I wanted to request of Adam tomorrow morning, and he's not here, and that was to set aside time tomorrow for the administration, if they have any recommendations. Obviously, the guidelines have made a difference in terms of ARPA, I mean, and funding proposals. And so we need to, just to give people some idea, our goal is to wrap this budget up by Tuesday evening. If you realize we'll have to vote it in the Senate. I don't know about rule suspension, but our policy committees need to understand that this budget, it takes a while to get it put together, to get it to the Secretary of the Senate's office, some lead time, and depending on how people feel about it, rule suspension. So I just am reiterating this. We are operating against an adjournment of Friday. And that is what this conference committee
Yes.
and Representative Hooper and I have talked about it, that we need to communicate that. So that's going to be our task. And I was hoping that the administration would be on, because my request would be for them to come in tomorrow morning if they have any thoughts or what, and also all the different positions that are being requested that go with administration, and make sure that we understand them, as well as what needs to be included to make the funding work. It has to come tomorrow morning. So we're going to have to make that request. I'd hope that the commissioner would have been on this afternoon to hear this request. But just so the conferees know that that we do need to get, we do need to have that information, and we need it as soon as possible, simply because we haven't got many more days.
Yeah. So Senator Kitchell, perhaps we can request of our staff to issue a formal
Yes,
invitation
we'll have to do that. Yes,
Yes.
we'll have to do that, to say we're making time available tomorrow morning for, we can send it to the Secretary of Administration and the Commissioner of Finance for the administration to present their staffing and administrative cost request, and any other proposed changes that are a result of the guidelines in terms of funding sources. So that we need to hear from them tomorrow.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, because it's hard to believe, but we would like to adjourn.
Desperately.
Yeah. And somehow that sense, as somebody said, if we were at the State House and it's a warm day and people, there would be a different sense than what we have here working remotely. But it does take on a certain sense of urgency to get work done, because so much of what we do is really contingent on getting that kind of feedback. So hopefully tomorrow you'll be getting, or even tonight, some kind of communication from the other committees like Human Services and Healthcare, I guess,
Yep.
are out there as well as
Yes.
Commerce. So-
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
well, we'll adjourn for today, and some of us will go on to our next Zoom appearance.
Yes.
So thank you.
Okay.
9 o'clock tomorrow morning.